And we start. So thanks for jumping on to Unfinished Friday. And today we've got a real good treat for you all. Derek Effle with Prairie Fire Consulting, and just all around good guy. Derek's going to share with us. So I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm just going to turn it over to Derek. He's got a lot. Get your pen, get your paper, and get ready. Here we go.
Wow. Okay. So my name's Derek Effle, Prairie Fire Consulting. We're a business-to-business consulting firm. And it's funny to say that because a firm, there's two of us. And we go out and help businesses in a lot of different areas. So anything from, hey, we're not doing well as a company, to strategic planning, to gaining traction with your people, and really kind of looking at how do we as an organization do better together with our employees, with our customers. Like, we're struggling a little bit. The number one thing that we hear, and the thing I'm talking about today, is communication. We don't communicate well. Our leaders don't communicate well. I don't communicate well. That's what we hear all the time. So today, I'm just going to quickly go through why it's important and how do we do it well. I've only got 10 minutes, and this is months worth of work when we're working with our teams that we work with. So what makes me, I can't remember who spoke last week, but he did a really good, like, hey, what makes me qualified? You know, why should I be talking about this? Well, I've worked so many jobs in my life. At one point, I had 5 different jobs. I was working 5 part-time jobs while going to school. I've worked mom and pop. I've worked in a large school district for education. My degree is in elementary education. So I've worked public education, private education, government, nonprofit, manufacturing. I led a really large children's ministry here in Lincoln. We've helped in corporate settings. We've helped in mom and pops. And I've been on the receiving end of bad communication and good communication, but a lot of bad communication. So why is it important? Why is it important to communicate? When we talk to employees that are struggling at work, almost always, I would say it's above 98% of the time, communication is a big piece of the frustration. Effective communication, it fosters a good working relationship between you and staff, you and customers. Leadership communication, believe it or not, is the top internal communication factor that statistically correlates to how engaged employees are. There's multiple studies out there that you can read that talk about, you know, if they're communicating well, their people are engaged. They're not communicating well, their people are not engaged. In the corporate world, workers spend on average, believe this or not, on average 25% of their workday on email-related tasks. How many of those are relevant is what I would ask you. Information gets lost. The important information to an employee can easily get lost when you show up to work and you have 135 emails. Employers who keep their emails or their employees informed have people who stay longer. They have less turnover. Those that know how to communicate effectively actually build brand ambassadors. So their people move from just working there to actually being out in the community and doing some of that sales work for them. Transparency is a huge thing that we hear. Companies that communicate in a very transparent and open way have a much healthier work atmosphere, a higher level of employee satisfaction. People stay if they know what's going on, if they know what's expected of them, if they know what we're doing and where we're going as a company. They stay. They jump on board and they work towards doing it better. So what do you do? When I talk communication, it's more than just emails. It's more than just text messages. It's more than using a Slack or there's hundreds of different ways to communicate. When I talk communication, I'm talking from everything from daily activities to what's our mission and our vision and our goals for our company, and how does my daily work, me sitting behind a computer doing data entry, how does that relate to the overall mission of our organization? And I'm also talking, how do we communicate face to face? How do we communicate sitting next to one another or sitting across the office from one another? I'd say there's when I look at it, 4 different ways to do it well. First is to engage your people, knowing what do they need to know and what do they want to know to do their job well. We've all run into those CEOs or CFOs or people don't need to know that, but does it hurt if they know that? And if it's something they want to know, to feel engaged, to feel a part of the process, to feel like they're not just a cog in the wheel, what does it hurt to put that out there? Second thing that we always talk about with communication is to define your communication. And by that, I mean things like meetings, defining your meetings, having things like a standing meeting, which is literally that. We come together, we stand up, we don't sit down behind computers. It's 10 minutes, and we just stand and talk about what the day is going to be like or what the week's going to be like. We have a couple of our clients that do this every single day, every single morning. It's, we show up at 8:05 is our standing meeting. So come in, put your coffee cup down and meet at the water cooler, and we're going to have a 10-minute stand up. The other 2 types of meetings, strategic meetings and tactical meetings, those are very different. If you schedule a strategic meeting, you're doing some strategic planning or looking at where we're going or what we want to go or what we want to pursue. We inform our clients, don't veer from that. Don't spend the first 5 minutes or, we just have to talk about this one thing for 5 minutes on this employee issue or this machine that broke issue. When that happens, it always veers wrong way. And there are people in those meetings that aren't there for that. They haven't prepared for that and they feel like it's a waste of time. And the tactical meetings, what's our sit down team meeting once a week, once every other week, however you do that. Keeping it to the time limit. There are certain personalities that really structure their time and have expectations. If we say we're starting at 9 a.m., we don't start at 9:05. We start at 9 a.m. They're the ones that are there at 8:58, ready to go with their pen and their notebook out. And some people see that as, yeah, whatever, I'll be there soon. But for them, that's their expectation of themselves, and they transfer that onto other people. They really are, in the system we use, True Colors, they're golds. We start at 9 o'clock, we end at 10 o'clock. And since that's what we were told, we're going to do exactly that. So the third thing we always talk about is learning your people and how they communicate and using this to your advantages. So within True Colors, there's 4 personality types: oranges, golds, greens, and blues. And each one of them, everybody communicates just a little bit differently. Everybody has an email address, but guess what? Oranges like me, if you want the best out of me, if you want to communicate something to me, to an orange, an email is not the way to do it, because it gets put in that other pile, that read later pile. I'll get to that one tomorrow, and it's never tomorrow, it's always today. And it just keeps getting pushed and pushed. If you know oranges, if you've done True Colors stuff, oranges, you want to go sit on their desk. You want to go get in their airspace. You want to, pop in and say, hey, I sent you an email. Can you read it? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll do it right now. They have a floating priority list. And the only way to make it to the top really is to be in their airspace. Blues are people. Relationship comes first. Authenticity is important. We start off every one of our emails. Dan, my business partner, I bounce emails back and forth and say things like, hey, will you blue this up for me? Which means you're acknowledging the person. If I send something to Aaron, it's going to be, hey, Aaron, what are you doing this weekend? I'm excited to hear when I see you, next Friday, what you did this weekend. And then I go into the body of my email, because you leave, especially with written communication, you leave the interpretation up to the other person. So if I send Aaron an email that says, hey, what's the status of that project? He can interpret it as like, doggone it, what's the status of that project? And I leave that open to him. But if I put those qualifiers in the beginning, like, hey, Aaron, how's your weekend? I just want to know where we're standing with that project. I get to control a little bit of what is being said. Goals require details, and more details, and they look for follow through. Okay, they are people that if I say I'm going to do something by noon on Monday, they're coming to me at 11:55 and saying, you said you'd be done by noon. You can also expect that from them. If they said they'll be done Friday morning at 8 o'clock, guess what? It won't be done Thursday at noon. It won't be done Thursday at 4. But by golly, it'll be done Friday at 8 a.m. because that's when they said they would do it. And greens are, thanks, Aaron, for the 2-minute warning. Greens are very, they're global thinkers. They're big picture thinkers. They don't get into the weeds. That's not their comfort zone. They get into I want to know the big picture. I want to know, where are we going? What's our plan, our strategic plan? What's the end result? Before you can even enter into, hey, is it A or B? They want to know, well, what's this choice going to do for me? Which one is going to get me towards what is our end goal? Last point I got for you is to have a plan. Communication doesn't just happen. You need a plan. You need to know who is responsible after the meeting for putting notes together, who's responsible for getting those notes out. What are we going to communicate? When is it going to be communicated? What's the regularity behind of it? Where do I go to get the information? So if I'm one of your employees or I'm a customer, how often have you communicated to me, hey, if you need more information, go here? The how, that's the biggest hurdle. Okay, when working with our clients, how we do communication, every one of them wants to be better. They just don't know how, and that's what we help them with. So communication, we all love it and want it, but we all need to do it better, me included.
That was awesome. That was awesome. Great timing.
Thanks.
Anybody? I'll take maybe 1 or 2 questions. I bet there's a question or two out there.
So have you found out with communication too, I kind of follow the 3 C's: clear, concise, and courteous. Mm-hmm. So do you have to kind of fit it into the types too of the hopefully Aaron will give us a summary of the blues and greens and all that other stuff.
Yep. So clear communication, concise communication, and courteous communication. It's all 3 of those are super important, but it's not always. If you do all 3 of those with me, it's clear, it's concise, I've got all my bullet points and it's in there, and you email it to me, guess what, Clint? I may or may not get to it because that's not how I function. That's the best way to put it together, but the best way for you to get to someone like me is to call me on the phone and say, hey, Derek, I sent you an email. Can you read it? And I'll be like, oh, yeah, sure. Good reminder. I saw that yesterday and I forgot about it. So there are some individuals that I think you're spot on if you do everything that way, but you also have to take that other personal piece to it. Everybody does it just a little bit different. And I don't have time to talk about nature versus nurture and what we grew up with, because all that goes into it. I lived with the dad who was come home and boom, 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 boom. And I love my dad to death, but he ruled with a hammer. That was the only tool in his toolbox. So I do that. That's my go-to. is to be that way, and I have to go, no, wait up, slow up just a little bit, and kind of dive into things because I've learned differently. So that's my nature, is what I grew up with. Or I'm sorry, my nature is what I am, which is like, oh, Derek, slow down. My nurture is I grew up with a dad who just does things. He's wired differently than I am.
Awesome. One more question before we sign off.
What is the best way to communicate with you, Derek?
With me?
Yeah.
Number one best way is to show up on my front porch. Or show up to my office. Or next best way would be to call me, because I always answer my phone. I'm one of those weirdos that if I don't know the number, I'm excited to answer it because I want to talk to who's on the other end. Really, I am. I'm like, ooh, I wonder where I can get with this person, because it's just how I'm wired. I'm an engager. And the best way for me to engage is to look you square in the eye and let's chat about it. So you can text me because, yeah, I do phone things. Worst way to get a hold of me really is email. I do it because it's a necessity, and I do it because that's how I take a step towards other people, is I have to discipline myself to do it, because it's not my best way to communicate, but I tell you what, it is with maybe even a lot of you. So I have to discipline myself to do that. And that takes work. But if that's reciprocated and you want to do what's best for me, yeah, it's to show up in my office.
Love it, Derek. Thanks for sharing today. If you want to see this video again and you want to go through all the colors yourself, it'll be on my Facebook page and then also on my YouTube channel at Rude Awakenings. So find that and awesome. Derek, you have anything to leave us with, or are you good to go?
Nope, I'm good to go.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. I appreciate it, and hopefully see you next Friday.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Aaron.